Welcome to Audiobook 365 Stories.
One summer afternoon, in a garden in Toledo, a young girl told me this interesting story. She was as kind as she was beautiful. As she spoke, she picked the petals and small parts of a flower. She kissed them while she explained the special meaning of the flower in the story. If I could tell the story the same way she did, with her sweet voice and simple words, you would feel the same emotions I felt. But since I cannot do that, I will write down the parts of the story that I remember. A long time ago, in one of the small, dark, and narrow streets of the imperial city, there was an old, broken house. The house was between a tall Moorish tower of a Visigothic church and a big family mansion with stone walls. This house was as sad and dark as its owner, a Jewish man named Daniel Levi. Daniel, like many others from his people, was bitter and liked revenge. But no one was better than him at lying and tricking others. People said he was very rich, but every day he sat in the doorway of his small home, working with old belts, chains, and broken things. He fixed these items and sold them to poor people from the market, small shop owners, and low-class men. Daniel hated Christians and everything related to them. But when he saw an important knight or a rich churchman, he took off his little dirty cap many times to show respect. When customers came to his shop, he bowed low and gave them big, fake smiles. Everyone in Toledo knew about Daniel's famous smile. No matter how badly people treated him, he never stopped smiling. The neighborhood children threw stones at his house to make him angry. The young men from the castle called him bad names. The old Christian women made the sign of the cross when they walked past his door, as if he was the devil himself. But Daniel kept smiling. His smile was strange and hard to understand. His thin lips moved under his big, hooked nose, which looked like an eagle's beak. His small, green eyes, hidden under thick eyebrows, shined with anger. But still, he did not stop working. He hit his little hammer on the anvil, fixing old, rusty things that seemed useless. Above the door of his small house was an old Arabic-style window, left from when the Moors ruled Toledo. The window was decorated with colorful tiles. A green, healthy climbing plant grew from inside the house and covered part of the window. Inside that dark house, where only a little light came through the window, lived Sarah, Daniel's beloved daughter. When people walked past Daniel's shop and saw Sarah through the window, they always said the same thing. How can such a beautiful flower grow from such an ugly old tree? Sarah was truly beautiful. Her big eyes, under long black eyelashes, had a small bright light, like a star in the night sky. Her lips were red and soft, as if a fairy had carefully made them. Her skin was pale and clear, like white stone on a statue. She was only 16 years old, but her face showed wisdom beyond her years. She often let out soft sighs, like a girl just beginning to understand love. The most important Jewish men in the city were amazed by Sarah's great beauty. Many of them asked to marry her. But Sarah did not care about their love. Even when her father told her to choose a husband so she would not be alone in the world, she refused. She gave no reason except that she wanted to stay free. One day, one of the men who loved her got tired of her rejections. He thought her sadness must mean she had a secret. So, he went to Daniel and said, "Daniel, do you know that our people are talking about your daughter?" Daniel looked up from his work for a moment. He stopped hitting the metal with his hammer and, without showing any emotion, asked, "What do they say about her?" "They say," the man continued, "they say, well, many things. One of them is that your daughter is in love with a Christian." The man waited to see how Daniel would react. Daniel slowly looked up at him again. He stared at him for a moment without speaking. Then, he lowered his eyes back to his work and said, "And who says this? Maybe it is a lie. It is someone who has seen them together in this very street, talking while you were away at our religious service," said the young Jewish man. He was surprised that Daniel was not more shocked. Daniel kept working. He put down his little hammer and picked up a small file to clean the metal clasp of a sword. As he worked, he began speaking softly, as if he was just thinking out loud. He laughed in a strange and scary way. "So, a Christian dog thinks he can take my Sarah from me? My Sarah, the most beautiful girl of our people, the one who takes care of me in my old age? And do you think he can do it?" He kept talking to himself and laughing. His file scraped the metal harder and harder. My friends will say, poor Daniel is too old and weak. He cannot protect his daughter from our enemies. Do they think Daniel is asleep? Do they think I do not see what is happening? Maybe my daughter has a lover, yes, maybe. And maybe he is a Christian. Maybe he is trying to win her heart. And maybe he already has. Maybe they are planning to run away. Maybe they will leave tomorrow morning. Do you think Daniel will just let them go? Do you think I will not take my revenge?" The young man was shocked. "So you already knew?" he asked. "I know," Daniel said. He stood up and patted the young man's shoulder. "I know more than you do. And you would not know anything if it was not time for me to speak. Now go. Tell our people to meet as soon as possible. Tonight, in an hour or two, I will come to them. Goodbye." Daniel then gently pushed the young man out into the street. He slowly picked up his tools and locked the door of his little shop with strong bolts and bars. As the door made a loud creaking sound, the young man did not hear another sound, the sound of a window quickly closing. At that moment, Sarah had just pulled away from her window. It was the night of Good Friday. The people of Toledo had just finished a special church service in their great cathedral. Some had gone to sleep, while others sat with their families, telling old stories. They talked about legends like the Christ of the Light, a statue that was stolen by Jews, but left a trail of blood, leading to the thieves. They also told the story of the child martyr, a boy who suffered like Jesus because of enemies of the Christian faith. The city was very quiet. Sometimes the silence was broken by the distant cries of the night guards who watched over the castle. Other times, the wind made noises as it moved the weather vanes on the towers and blew through the narrow streets. At this late hour, a boatman was sitting in his small boat, which was tied to a post near the mills by the river Tagus. The city stood high on the rocks above him. He watched as someone slowly walked down a steep path from the city walls to the river. "It is her," the boatman said to himself. He had been waiting for this person. Then he muttered, "It seems like all the Jews in this cursed city are up to something tonight. Where could they be meeting with the devil? Why do they all come to my boat when the bridge is so close? No, they must be doing something secret. They don't want the soldiers from San Servando to see them. But well, they pay me good money, and that's all I care about." The boatman sat down and got his oars ready. When Sarah, because it was her, jumped into the boat, he untied the rope and started rowing to the other side of the river. "How many people have crossed the river tonight?" Sarah asked. It seemed like she already knew something about what was happening. "I can't count them," the boatman replied. "A lot. It looks like tonight will be their last meeting." "Do you know why they are leaving the city at this hour?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "But I think they are waiting for someone who is coming tonight. I don't know why they want him, but I don't think it's for a good reason." Sarah sat in silence for a few moments. She was thinking deeply. "My father must know about our love," she thought. "He is planning something terrible. I must find out where they are going, what they are doing, and what they are planning. If I wait too long, he could die." Sarah suddenly stood up. Her heart was beating fast, and she wiped her cold, sweaty forehead with her hand. At that moment, the boat reached the other side of the river. "Friend," Sarah said, throwing some coins to the boatman and pointing to a small, winding road between the rocks, "is that the way they go?" "Yes," the boatman answered. And when they reached the place called the Moor's Head, they turned left. After that, only the devil and they know where they go. Sarah started walking in the direction he had pointed. The boatman watched as she moved through the dark path, sometimes appearing, sometimes disappearing behind the rocks. When she reached the high point called the Moor's Head, she stood for a moment. The moonlight showed her dark figure against the night sky. Then she disappeared into the darkness. On the path where the small church of the Virgin of the Valley stands today, there were old ruins long ago. These ruins were from a very old Byzantine church, built before the Arabs came to Spain. At that time, the church was broken and empty. In front of it, there were big stones covered with wild plants and thorns. Some pieces of the church lay on the ground. Here, the top of a broken column, and there, a stone with strange carvings of leaves, monsters, and human faces. Only the side walls and some broken arches covered in ivy were still standing. Sarah arrived at the place the boatman had told her about. She stopped for a moment, not sure which way to go. Then she walked with strong, determined steps toward the old church ruins. Her heart was beating fast, and she had a bad feeling. And she was right. Inside the ruins, a group of Jews had gathered, led by her father, Daniel. But he was not the quiet, gentle old man from his shop. His eyes were full of anger, and he looked like a different person. He gave orders, pushed people to work faster, and made sure everything was ready for something terrible. He had been planning this for a long time, even while working at his anvil in Toledo. Sarah, hidden in the shadows, saw everything. She almost screamed in horror. By the light of a fire, she saw some men lifting a heavy cross. Others were making a crown of thorns, and some were sharpening large nails. A terrible thought came to her. She remembered old stories she never believed. People said that Jews secretly killed children in cruel rituals. She always thought these were lies to hurt her people. But now she saw it with her own eyes. It was true. They were planning to crucify someone. Her heart filled with anger. She could not stay quiet. Sarah ran out of the shadows and stood at the entrance of the ruins. The men gasped in surprise. Daniel took a step toward her, his face dark with fury. "What are you doing here, foolish girl?" he asked in a deep, harsh voice. "I'm here to stop you," Sarah said loudly and clearly. "Shame on you. Your victim will not come. I warned him. He is safe." Daniel's face twisted in rage. "Sarah, this cannot be true. You would not betray your own people," he shouted. "If you have done this, you are no longer my daughter." Daniel's anger exploded. Like a madman, he grabbed Sarah by her hair and threw her to the ground. He dragged her toward the wooden cross, as if an evil spirit had taken over him. "Take her," he shouted to the men. "Punish her like she deserves. She has betrayed us all." It was Easter morning. The church bells rang joyfully. The people of Toledo celebrated, playing games and shooting arrows at straw figures of Judas, just like they still do in some villages today. Daniel opened his shop as usual. He smiled at the people passing by, just like always. His little hammer hit the anvil again and again. But the window of Sarah's room stayed closed. The beautiful Jewish girl was never seen again. Many years later, a shepherd found a new kind of flower near the old church ruins. It was a climbing plant, and its petals had strange shapes. They looked like the tools used in Jesus' crucifixion. The shepherd took the flower to the archbishop. People searched the ruins and found something shocking. They found the skeleton of a woman. Near her bones were the same tools of the crucifixion. Nobody knew who she was, but for many years, people honored her memory. They kept her remains in a small chapel. And the flower? Today, it is a common plant. We call it the passion flower.